When nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to NewsWire right here on SportsGrid. I am Brady Cannon, filling in for my buddy Craig Mish here on a Tuesday, New Year's Eve, the final day of 2024 as we get ready to flip the calendar to 2025. And it was on Monday, the second to last day of 2024, that we witnessed certainly some good football, both college and pro. And we didn't expect it might be a good game, a meaningless game on Monday night down in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium between the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. But it turned out to really be a dandy. And, of course, speaking of dandy, Dan Campbell, a dandy indeed. You got to love this guy. He didn't need to play his starters. This game was relatively meaningless. It didn't mean positioning as far as seeding. That game, of course, will come this Sunday night. The final game of the 2024 regular season in the NFL will be a biggie. The Detroit Lions taking on the Minnesota Vikings at Ford Field in Detroit, and that will be for the number one seed in the NFC. The 49ers have been eliminated from the playoffs, so the game meant nothing to them, but the Detroit Lions come away with a victory and a cover, 40-34, your final. This was really a back-and-forth affair. Maybe that defense, something to be concerned about for the Detroit Lions going forward. Of course, a lot of injuries on that defense. This was once the most powerful team in the NFL, but they have been hampered by injuries as of late. We'll see if they can make that patchwork necessary that they need to improve before that meeting with the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday night. But a great game, certainly at Levi Stadium. The game sails over the total. Again, 40-34, your final. The Lions cover as 3.5, even as high as 4.5 point favorites prior to kick. And after the game, they asked Coach Campbell about the decision that he had to make about resting the starters or going for broke here and playing everybody as per normal. And, you know, Dan Campbell is that aggressive guy, but he said he had to mull over this decision for a while heading in.
I thought a lot about it. You know, I thought about it leading up to the game. I thought about it last night. I told the staff. But I ended up settling on the right thing to do was play these guys. And because we owed it to the team, you know, and it was just one of those positions we were in. It's just hard to say who you're going to sit, and And it's not fair to ask guys to play that haven't been prepared to play, you know? So yeah, that was tough. And I think the biggest thing is there was things we wanted to do better than we did last week, and we did. We cleaned a lot of things up offensively. I thought defensively we talked about getting takeaways. We got takeaways, and so that'll always serve you well going into the next week. And look, there was never going to be anything you know, we knew what this is. You're out on the West Coast, you go, man, it's all good. That's what we do. You know what I mean? This is what we do. Like, we love it hard. And this is our deal right now. So we're looking forward to this, everything about this week.
This is what we do, and we love it hard. Dan Campbell, you got to love them. They win, and they will take on, again, the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday. The final game of the 2024 regular season will be for all the marbles in the NFC. Minnesota, really a surprise team this year, and, you know, hats off to them no matter what happens on Sunday. An incredible season for their coach, Kevin O'Connell and company, and equally so for Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. Kyle Shanahan on the losing end, head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. I mentioned that they have been eliminated from the playoffs for a couple of weeks now. So how does he prepare his team? And it's the Monday night spotlight. We understand that. But Kyle said, you know, we treat it as any other contest.
Try to approach it the same way we approach every game. Try our hardest to win and try to play our best. I thought the guys played real hard. I thought they competed. I thought every chance to beat a real good football team there. Obviously, not everything was perfect. I thought, we weren't able to slow them down enough on defense. It's a real good offense, but still thought we should slow them down a little bit more. Thought the difference in the game, though, was, then obviously the type of game it was. They've been in a number of those games this year, but we had to win it in a shootout, and I thought the difference was our two turnovers and getting none. Once that happened, that's why you end up losing by one score.
Shanahan was also asked about his struggling place kicker, Jake Moody, who missed 2 field goals on Monday night and an extra point. I believe it was 10 out of his last 17 field goals have been made, and I don't think that counted the last one. I heard that during the broadcast. I believe it was Joe Buck mentioned that. So a real struggle for a guy that was a third-round pick out of Michigan who they had high hopes for. He was asked if they will be evaluating the kicker position in the offseason. He said, yes, we're evaluating all positions, but it'll be interesting to see if Jake Moody is a San Francisco 49er going forward. There was some, insult to injury, if you will, for the San Francisco 49ers, for their star quarterback, Brock Purdy. Of course, he had surgery in the offseason on that elbow, on the throwing arm, and suffered a bit of a nick to that same arm with a sack towards the end of the game on Monday night. And Purdy talked about that, said, he's not really sure if it's anything serious or not, but not feeling so great after re-injuring possibly this arm again on Monday against the Lions. About the status of your elbow?
Nothing right now. We're going to get an MRI tomorrow and see. So.
Is it a concern to you at this point?
It doesn't feel the best, but just leave it at that. So we'll see tomorrow.
Can you describe what happened?
On that sack, I got hit on the backside, and basically just my arm was on fire kind of thing. And so I tried throwing a couple on the sideline, and I couldn't at that point. So, it has nothing to do with tapping out of the game or anything like that. I love my teammates, and I'll go to the very end for them and this fan base and everybody. So that's what hurts me is like I couldn't finish the game. But again, we'll see tomorrow.
Speculation now looms if Purdy will start the final game of the season here in Week 18. Of course, he has a big contract to negotiate in the offseason. We'll see if he gets that top quarterback money. That's really a decision the San Francisco 49ers have to make going forward with their quarterback. The final player drafted in the draft a few years back, Brock Purdy. Amazing where his career has come. Now decision time for San Francisco if they're going to pay him the big time bucks. Bucks. Other news in the NFL, the New York Jets looking for their next coach. Of course, Jeff Ulbrich, a former San Francisco 49er, an interim coach there filling in for Robert Saleh. And now they look to make a permanent move here. And both Ron Rivera and apparently Rex Ryan are candidates. Of course, Ryan coached the Jets formerly, and Ron Rivera, his latest stint with the Washington Commanders. So two names out there currently apparently interviewing or being considered by the New York Jets to be their new head coach in 2025. Not good news for these athletes and their homes being burglarized. Apparently, this is becoming more of a thing. We heard about it with Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, the Kansas City Chiefs duo. Apparently, their homes have been burglarized as well. And now the latest, moving over into the NBA, Luka Doncic home was burglarized recently here. Dallas police reporting that. So tough news there. The FBI now getting involved. Apparently some organized crimes possibly out of South America getting involved in this thing. And they warn these spouses, girlfriends, what have you, of these athletes while they're playing their games not to go on social media and tell your friends that the home is not occupied. But we will see where that goes going forward. Also, some college football news. Missouri beat Iowa in the Music City Bowl on Monday, 27-24. Missouri covered as a 1.5-point favorite, and that game sailed over the total of 41.5. The Tigers finished the season at 10-3, and the Iowa Hawkeyes finished the season at 8-5. We will talk some more college football, plenty of college games coming up for your New Year's Eve day. We'll talk with Bill Bender about those contests next, right here on NewsWire on SportsGrid.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there. A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire right here on SportsGrid. A Tuesday morning, the final day of 2024. Brady Cannon filling in for Craig Mish this morning, and we are now joined by a regular here that joins us each and every week to talk some college football. That's our friend Bill Bender from the Sporting News. You can find him on Twitter or X at BillBender92. Bill, thank you so much for joining us as usual. Let's get right into it. We have got some college football playoff games this evening, and then we go with a full schedule of games on New Year's Day. And it'll be later this evening, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Penn State and Boise State. And the Nittany Lions, we have not yet seen a whole lot of line movement just yet. About 11.5-point favorites are the Nittany Lions, and it's pretty much been stuck there so far. What are your thoughts on this one? A big favorite out of the Big Ten, taking on a group out of the Big Five, and Ashton Jeanty, the runner-up in the Heisman Trophy vote.
Yeah, well, Jeanty, does he make this a game? He is the X factor. Here's a guy that went for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns against Oregon earlier this season. And when you watch him play, he's a high volume ball carrier. You know, there'll be 3 yards, 4 yards. And then all of a sudden he busts a 40-yard run. Can they maintain that, stay on schedule against a very aggressive and the best run defense that he has faced all season in Penn State? And then on the other side, do the Nittany Lions just dominate on the ground like they did in the first round with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, and then Drew Aller makes a few plays over the top? I do think this will be a competitive game. I flip-flopped on it, I'll be honest, but I got Boise State covering the big number, but I don't see a path that Penn State doesn't win the game. By the way, both of these teams have never lost the Fiesta Bowl. I think that's a very interesting stat.
That is, and of course we remember so many years of Boise State and the trick plays there when Chris Peterson was at the helm. Earlier this season, we saw Boise State be extremely competitive against the Oregon Ducks, and then Penn State head coach James Franklin kind of has that label of not being able to perform or struggling in big games. Do you possibly see that playing out here? Is this another spotlight game where he might struggle a bit?
Well, for all the talk about that, he takes care of business when he's a favorite. You know, over the last 3 years, 24-9-1 against the spread as a favorite. Only one straight-up loss, and that was to Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl last year as a favorite. And that game, Olufashano didn't play. There were several guys on both sides. It was one of those opt-in, opt-out type games. So for all the criticisms of James Franklin, I'll give him this. He takes care of business when he is supposed to. And I think they do in this case. And we've talked so much about how Penn State had this easy path to the playoff. Well, I'll give them a little bit of credit for taking advantage of it. I think they get on to the semifinals.
All right, very good. Let's move over to the New Year's Day schedule. 3 games as a part of the college football playoff on Wednesday. And we start with Texas and ASU, the Arizona State Sun Devils. Really a tremendous story this year, Bill. 11-2 against the spread, but they, like Boise, kind of look similar here when you look at the point spread. Double-digit underdogs here. 12.5-point favorites are the Texas Longhorns. And we know this team has been impressive all season long. Are they going to be too much for the upstart Arizona State Sun Devils?
Watch the run the ball, stop the run element here. You know, can Cam Scatterbo get going against this Texas run defense? It's very active, gets a lot of TFLs up front. And then for Texas, 3 of the last 4 games, over 200 yards rushing. Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, they've been fantastic, and that'll take the pressure off Quinn Ewers. They are close to home in Atlanta. It's a huge number to cover, but I think Texas will be comfortable getting in a back-and-forth shootout type game. Remember, they were in the Big 12 just a year ago, and they're 5-0 straight up when they're favored by between 10 and 20 points. I see the Longhorns cruising here. This is the game of the 4 that has the biggest potential for a blowout to me, but I do understand that Arizona State, if Sam Leavitt is hot, they could hang around into the second half.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Boise State may have a better chance as a big dog than does Arizona State. I'd love to see them both be competitive. This one, the odds are telling us that it'll be competitive no matter what, and that is the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, Ohio State and Oregon. Both of these teams familiar with this venue from Rose Bowls past, but Ohio State actually comes in as the favorite, as the lower seed against the number 1 seed, the Oregon Ducks. I think many would argue that maybe Ohio State has the slightly better defense, maybe Oregon has the slightly better offense. Where do you see this one playing out, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon, do they throw the ball down the field again? They're one of the few, if not the only team, that's had success throwing the ball down the field consistently against Ohio State. Dylan Gabriel didn't get sacked in that first game. He was 4 of 4 on passes of 20 yards or more, and the Buckeyes just couldn't get to him. And that's what I'm watching. Does that pass rush land? On the other side, is Will Howard, the quarterback that we saw in the first round matchup against Tennessee, getting the ball to Jeremiah Smith? I like the over in this game. Classic shootout. I'm still picking the Ducks to win, but it's a really tough call because I think Ohio State, with the momentum they created in the first round, absolutely capable of winning the game.
Yeah, I like to hear that. Myself and my old ties to the Pac-12, I'm an Oregon fan in this game as well, Bill. And then finally, the nightcap, the Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame and Georgia, a dandy here, an even tighter point spread where Georgia is favored by about a point or a point and a half. And I think the question is, there are some injuries to that Notre Dame defense, but can the backup quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's such a spot for him. You know, he showed that the offense was functional with Gunnar Stockton in the SEC championship game. They were able to run the ball effectively with Trevor Etienne, and I think that's going to be the key. Notre Dame, Riley Mills is a big loss. He's game wrecker in the middle, had 7 sacks, lose him to a knee injury. But I do think the Bulldogs find a way to run the football. Again, this is a tough call because Notre Dame absolutely capable of winning the game, but I'm so conditioned to picking Georgia and Kirby Smart in these spots. I think that tough schedule matters. Gunnar Stockton finds a way. Georgia wins. Defensive struggle, I think I had it at 24-17.
Bill, while we've got you, we've just got about 30 seconds left. We do have another bowl game coming up, the Relia Quest Bowl, that'll kick off in about 40 minutes. And it is a couple of blue blood names, Alabama and Michigan, a rematch from last year's semifinal in the playoffs. And Alabama's a massive favorite here. Real quick, can the Crimson Tide cover the number?
I think they will because Michigan's missing so many guys. This is the problem with opt-outs. I got it around 31-14.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Bill. Happy New Year to you. We'll talk to you again next week, my friend.
Thank you.
All right.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion, each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into NewsWire. Brady Cannon filling in for Craig Mish on this December 31st, 2024, New Year's Day Eve. And we've reached that time of the morning. It is time for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Taking a look this evening's game, the college football playoff resumes for Penn State and Boise State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and Penn State, a pretty heavy favorite here over the Broncos of Boise State from the Mountain West Conference. The Big Ten against the Mountain West, and Penn State laying double digits here, about 11.5 points. We're going to hear from a couple of players, and also our very own Ben Stevens has a preview to take a look at this matchup coming up later today.
The start of the quarterfinal round of the first ever 12-team college football playoff. The Fiesta Bowl out in the desert between the 6 seed Penn State and the 3 seed, the champions of the Mountain West, that being Boise State. The Broncos in a very familiar setting at the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. This will be the 4th time Boise State has played in the Fiesta Bowl. In the previous 3 trips out to the Fiesta Bowl, the Broncos are perfect, 3-0 straight up, yet getting double digits, an 11.5-point underdog against Penn State. The Nittany Lions as a favorite since the start of the 2022 season, 34 games, 33 wins outright, 24-9-1 against the spread. Both the best win and cover percentage as a favorite among power conference programs. The Fiesta Bowl to start the quarterfinal round of the CFP. Back to you.
If I know Ben Stevens, a Big Ten fan, as far as I can gather, he is rooting for Penn State this evening. We'll see if his money is also on the Nittany Lions down here in Glendale, Arizona, not too far from Las Vegas, Nevada, where I reside, and very familiar with Boise State as a member of the Mountain West Conference. Beat our UNLV Rebels twice this season, and that second victory in the Mountain West Conference Championship is really what vaulted them into this college football playoff. Ashton Jeanty, their star running back. What a pleasure to watch he was all season long, pushing records of the likes of Barry Sanders. Many felt he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. Personally, I think Hunter was the proper selection there, but the voting was very close. And I think it's going to be great to see this guy on a national stage a little bit later this evening. He had some words to say about this matchup as the quarterfinals get underway in the college football playoff. Their matchup, Jeanty and the Boise State Broncos against Penn State.
Yeah, I feel really good about it. I mean, from the standpoint of, football is a very physical sport, and then, our offense, we pride ourselves in physicality. So I think it'll do us all well, having this time off. But obviously, it's been a little bit since we played football, but, I'm confident in our preparation and, how we've been working, and, we're all back now, so we can put some more work in and get ready.
Is the elbow injury completely behind you, or was that?
Yeah, that's completely, healed up. So glad that it is, so I can be closer to 100%.
In terms of, we saw some of the times you were carrying the ball on the other hand, maybe because of that or whatever. How much did that affect you in some of those games?
Yeah, it was definitely, it made it more challenging. Obviously, wearing that big elbow brace, you can't hold. I got big biceps, so, I couldn't hold the ball the way I wanted to always, so that's why I was switching it over. And, I think it was versus Nevada, I had a fumble because I couldn't, secure it properly. So just making sure I could really take care of the ball, because that's the most important thing.
Ashton Jeanty there, the star running back for the Boise State Broncos, getting ready to take on Penn State a little later this evening in the other desert, Glendale, Arizona, where the Arizona Cardinals play inside the Fiesta Bowl. Boise State about an 11.5-point underdog there. And I think this contest is very interesting from the terms of Penn State. Nobody in the country, other than the Boise State competition this season, nobody has faced a running back like this. But will the step up in class, playing a big-time team from the Big Ten, will that be too much to ask for Boise State? I'm looking forward to this contest, how Penn State and that run defense can handle Ashton Jeanty, and how that rushing attack for Boise State is able to put pressure on that Penn State defense. And then, of course, we flip over to New Year's Day, another big-time running back for Arizona State in Cam Skattebo. Unfortunately, Arizona State out without their star receiver. They may be hard-pressed to stay within the number there against Texas, the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all in Pasadena, Oregon, and Ohio State. I think that'll be a fantastic contest. And, of course, Notre Dame and Georgia a little bit later in the Sugar Bowl as well to round out your New Year's Day. We'll be back with more NewsWire in just a moment. Stick around.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFC selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Brady Cannon here on SportsGrid with you, filling in for my friend Craig Mish on a Tuesday, this final day of 2024. And we are now joined by our friend. He joins us here on NewsWire every week, Jacob Camenker. You can find him on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. That is Camenker. He writes for the USA Today covering the NFL. And I know, Jacob, first of all, thank you for joining us here on a Tuesday morning. Happy New Year to you. And I know you've been diving into the weeds all week and for the last couple of weeks trying to figure out all these playoff scenarios. Last night, Monday Night Football didn't mean anything in terms of playoffs, but we saw Dan Campbell and company go out there and kind of throw caution to the wind and play all the starters and take care of business against the San Francisco 49ers. Does that give them a little bit of momentum going into a game that really means something this Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings?
It does, and I think the Lions accomplished a few different things with this. I know a lot of people said this game doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but there is one important consideration. By winning, the Lions now can get into the playoffs as the number one seed. If they tie against the Vikings, they would. If they had lost, they would not have been able to get the one seed with a tie. So very small factor to consider. Ties aren't overly likely in the NFL, but it was important from that standpoint. But beyond that, Dan Campbell wanted to get a little bit of a measure of revenge against the 49ers for the NFC Championship game. I think he accomplished that. And, you know, the 49ers came out playing hard. This wasn't a team that had given up. And I think the Lions viewed this as a, hey, if we beat them, we're going to be in good shape for this matchup with the Vikings, like you said. And that's going to be a tough one for them. Detroit's defense is just so banged up, and they're going against a quality Minnesota offense where Sam Darnold has been playing out of his mind, and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are becoming one of the best receiving duos in the NFL. It's not just Justin Jefferson anymore. So I think that this is going to be a really good test for them before the postseason. But I do think that it was important for them to beat the 49ers just in case this game goes into overtime, because it gives you a little bit more freedom to say, hey, we want to win, but if this ends in a tie, we do get the bye.
Jacob, I think the point spread is interesting, and so is the total. Nearly 60 points, 57.5 for the total in this game. I was thinking that Detroit would be a 1.5-point favorite. If they were fully healthy, maybe I go to 2.5. But the odds makers are saying 2.5 is the number. Do you have an opinion on where you stand with this one, side or total?
I would probably lean on the Vikings in this case. I don't love it. Obviously, you're not getting the 3 here, so if it's a field goal game, you don't get that safety net of the push. But I think the issue, as you hit on, the Lions are just so banged up right now, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. They have, I think, 10 defensive players on IR, maybe even more than that at this point. But we're talking about a really depleted unit that Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell have done a great job to get as much out of it as possible. But this is a quality Vikings offense that's going to be able to move the ball and really score a lot like we saw the 49ers do, except on the drives where Brock Purdy threw interceptions. So long as Darnold doesn't turn the ball over, I think this ends up being a high-scoring game. And I trust Brian Flores' defense more with it pretty close to full health to get stops than I do this Detroit unit. So I would back the Vikings. I think they have a decent shot to win the game. And, man, as high as that point total is, I don't know how you can't take the over. You know the Lions are going to score a lot of points. They're going to give up a lot of points with the way their team currently is. So I think you could see a 34-31 type game unfold in this key spot, which, let's be clear, the NFL would love a high-scoring competitive game like that in its last regular season game of the season.
You bet they would, and I'm with you. I mean, 57.5 kind of seems short, which is crazy to say. Let's stick in the NFC, and the one remaining piece of drama is in the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers still a little bit in limbo there as far as who's going to win that division and launch themselves into the postseason. Atlanta had a stranglehold on it, and then they let it go with that loss to the I'm trying to remember who the Commanders on Sunday in overtime. And Tampa Bay really took care of business with a big win over the Carolina Panthers. It will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now playing the New Orleans Saints, and the Falcons will take on the Panthers. Tampa Bay is going to have to lose. Atlanta's going to have to win, and then they'll switch spots again, and Atlanta would vault themselves into the playoffs. How do you see this scenario playing out?
I think this is a pretty easy walk-in for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not to discount the Saints in total. We've seen strange things happen in the NFL, but the Saints have been down their top quarterback, top receiver, top tight end, top running back, and a couple of their top starting offensive linemen. So their offense just really isn't built to get into this kind of shootout that they'll probably need to be in to compete with the Buccaneers. So I think we're going to see another lopsided result there. The Falcons really needed to just keep control and beat the Commanders. The possibility to win was on the table, too. I think that's what's going to kill a lot of Falcons fans looking back, and they had that field goal to win it at the end, but Riley Patterson doesn't have a big enough leg to get that. And Raheem Morris had that one extra timeout that he just didn't take at the right time. But if they had got 10 yards closer, Riley Patterson, pretty good kicker, pretty accurate, they would have had a pretty good shot, I think, at beating the Panthers and winning the division. But at this point, you just brought up the spreads. It's a 13.5-point favor for the Buccaneers here. I think they're going to cover that spread. I just don't think the Saints have really any juice left, just given how depleted their roster is right now.
Yeah, it seemed all the juice the Saints had left happened for about the first couple of quarters last week against the Raiders, and they ran out of juice eventually, lost that game by 15 points, and I don't know what they have left in the tank here. Everything is basically wrapped up in the AFC. The Kansas City Chiefs have the number 1 seed. The Buffalo Bills have the number 2 seed. Really, the only remaining piece of drama there, and I don't know if you can even classify it as drama, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins have an outside shot, but that is only going to be if the Denver Broncos lose to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have already come out and said that they're going to rest their starters. This looks like a pretty easy path to victory and to the playoffs for Denver, Jacob.
Yeah, I think if you got a situation where the Chiefs were saying we're going to sit Patrick Mahomes but play some of our other starters, I think in that case you could have maybe convinced me that, hey, if Carson Wentz looks a little bit more like the old Carson Wentz, this could maybe be a spot where the Chiefs could still get a win. But the Broncos defense is just too good to be playing against backups and not have an easier shot to win it. And we already saw them almost beat the Chiefs earlier in the year, if not for a blocked field goal at the end of regulation. So I would imagine that this is probably going to be a spot where the Broncos win. I think if NFL fans, just people, casual fans who aren't a fan of any of these three teams, could have it their way, they probably would love to see Joe Burrow's team get into the postseason because he's been playing at such a high level, really MVP caliber play from him over the entire season. It's just his defense never stepped up. So they have a lot of offensive talent, and it's going to be fun to watch them play against the Steelers because they're playing that Saturday night game. They're going to fight for their lives in the playoff picture, and I think they'll have a good chance to win that one. But it's just a shame they couldn't pull out one more win early in the season just to make it a little more interesting, put a little more pressure on the Broncos. But I think you're right that Denver's path to the postseason is looking fairly easy at this point.
Yeah, you're right. The Cincinnati Bengals continue to struggle in September throughout Joe Burrow's career. And you're also right. He has been absolutely incredible this entire season. And hats off to Sean Payton, a pretty incredible turnaround there as head coach of the Denver Broncos. All right, who is the underdog darling in your mind in the NFC postseason, or excuse me, in the NFL postseason? I think the Packers are interesting, the Washington Commanders, and of course, Jim Harbaugh's Los Angeles Chargers. I almost said San Diego once again for about the 100th time. Are some of these underdogs live going into the postseason, in your opinion, Jacob?
I think the Packers could be. They're very close to beating those really good teams. And I think if Jordan Love just steps up his play a little bit, he's going to have a chance to maybe get hot at the right time and get them on a deep run.
Well, it looks like a good tournament, that's for sure. I think these underdogs are all exciting. And, of course, the top seeds are the top seeds for what they have done all season long. Jacob, Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for joining us as always. And we'll talk to you next week, my friend. Stick around. We've got more NewsWire coming up.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Brady Cannon with you, filling in for Craig Mish on this Tuesday morning, December 31st, New Year's Eve day. And we now want to bring in our friend Simon Applebaum, a sports media TV expert. You can find his podcast, Tomorrow Will Be Televised. Simon, thank you so much for joining us as usual. Talk to us. We've got all kinds of, in the past we had TV with Christmas and the NBA, and now the NFL trying to invade that space. Here on New Year's Eve day, we've got college football bowl games. New Year's Day, of course, we have college football playoff bowl games. Give me the lay of the land. What's the latest in your world, my friend?
Well, I'll tell you, Brady, and great to have you here, and congratulations to everybody at SportsGrid Network for a wonderful 2024 and a great 2025 ahead from all of us here at our production team at the Renaissance Hotel in New York. I'll tell you, Santa and his elves were very friendly on Christmas Day to both Netflix with their NFL doubleheader and with ABC and Disney for their NBA quintuple header, 5 games. First of all, in terms of Netflix, the thing going in with their games was, were they going to have a glitch-free doubleheader? And the fact of the matter is they did. They had 26 million people watching each game. They had 28 million people watching the Beyonce halftime, one of the best halftime regular season spectacles you've seen. By the way, that is now a separate half-hour show on Netflix, getting millions more. And when you have people from ESPN and other networks doing postings on X and social media saying, before the end of the first quarter of the first game, your coverage, the transmission of it, is as not just as good as, better than CBS, NBC, ABC, ESPN, Fox, etc., you know you are doing something special. I think how Santa Claus is going to reward Netflix next year is either A, getting an international game on Christmas Day, sometime during the regular season, B, a Black Friday game, maybe in prime time, alongside Amazon and their game the last 2 seasons, or maybe even a Christmas Day triple header, where they will have a primetime game. Remember, Netflix has Christmas Day games next year and the following year. And with the NFL's ability to tweak their schedule for television, that could happen. When it came to the NBA, ABC and Disney and the league needed a miracle in terms of having games that were in very good play, because it's been a terrible season TV-wise for the league, whether it's on TNT or on ABC and ESPN. And they got 5 great games, most going down the wire. Super performances. First game with Victor Wembanyama for the Spurs, Mikal Bridges for the Knicks, 40-point performances for both people. You had the great LeBron-Steph Curry matchup in the primetime game on ABC. I also, it was a good move that all the Christmas Day NBA games were carried on both ABC and ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. And I think that made a big difference in terms of the widespread viewer recognition and the widespread viewer results of all those games.
Simon, you have put out, as you always do each and every year, what you think your top 5 developments will be in sports TV for the coming year. If you could go over at least all 5 or a few of those for us now, what are your thoughts on where we're headed? It seems like Netflix may be a part of this in 2025.
It may very well be. And let's start with number 5, Roku being a major sports player. They got the X Games coming up next month. First of 2 that they're doing next year. They've got the Sunday afternoon baseball games they got from Peacock this year. They got all these NFL, NBA, Olympic Zone type programming. And also keep in mind that Roku has a pay system that may end up being very important in another development we're going to talk about in a moment. That's number 5. Number 4, women's TV sports explodes. You are going to see, we now have 2 channels full-time, Women's Sports Network, the All Women's Sports Network that started a month and a half ago with hosted by Whoopi Goldberg. You're going to see new leagues, maybe in volleyball, in lacrosse, outdoor lacrosse. Maybe athletes on the will get the act together. I know they're doing revising their softball league, so that's going to become more of a pro league with teams representing states or cities as opposed to individual players that get changed around every weekend. You're also going to see, by the way, next month, the beginning of Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 basketball league involving WNBA players. So that's going to be very big. Number 3, new NBA TV landscape, TNT out, ESPN, ABC staying put, and now we have NBC, Peacock, and Amazon coming in. And don't forget, going back to number 4, that in 2026, you're going to see the WNBA coming on with some of their games, maybe their big games, on NBC and Peacock. Number 2, and it's a big one, sports betting finally happens to the television set. Not with a QR code that's on the screen in a corner somewhere. You slap the smartphone on it and you get your bet done that way. It's going to be between you and the television set with your voice remote, maybe a system like Roku Pay that is supposed to be very secure, where you can order products and services through it. I think you'll see ESPN make the move. You may see FanDuel. You may see DraftKings, maybe Vizio with Walmart, and certainly Roku. And that leads to number one. ESPN launches what they call Flagship Now, their mega content service. What we don't know yet is, will ESPN Plus still be separate when that happens next fall, or will it be incorporated into this new mega content service, which, by the way, they're saying we will have betting, we will have interactive TV, we'll have special features. We just have to see what's going to be. And we may find out as early as next week when the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, happens in Las Vegas, where you are, if ESPN has anything to say, because Disney next week has their annual Global Tech and Media Showcase at CES. So we may get the first hints there about how big this new ESPN mega content service is going to be.
Very interesting. Simon, I want to get your professional opinion on what you think. We have seen, of course, the Manning cast, side-by-side Monday Night Football, become very, very popular. I wonder if in the near future we will see a bet cast being side-by-side, an NFL game, a PGA Tour golf event, what have you, where there's an alternate broadcast where a few guys are talking about the line movement and the current betting options while the game is going on, just again, side-by-side to the traditional broadcast.
I think you could, and you could see it as early as maybe next fall's NFL season. It all depends on whether the league itself is ready to take the leap and do it. Somebody is going to do it, whether it's the NFL, whether it's maybe Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, or maybe the Olympics down the road. Somebody is going to finally, I think, do that kind of alternative sportscast somewhere along the line next year.
Is there any major sport that needs that more than Major League Baseball?
I think the NFL wants to be the leader in this, like they've been a leader in all sorts of other sports TV developments. I think they may be the favorite to do it.
Very interesting. Simon, thank you as always for your contributions throughout the year. Happy New Year to you, my friend, and we'll do it again on the other side in 2025.
You got it, Brady. Take care. All the greatest, everybody, for a wonderful new year and a great sports TV year ahead.
All right, that is Simon Applebaum. Catch his podcast. Tomorrow will be televised. Great stuff there. Very interesting information week in and week out from our friend, Mr. Applebaum. We'll come back and wrap it up. It's NewsWire right here on SportsGrid.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion, each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Brady Cannon in for Craig Mish this morning, and we wrap up the program. You know what time it is. It's time for the last licks. All right, we begin with the newest Los Angeles Laker, Dorian Finney-Smith, formerly a Brooklyn Net, and he says this has kind of become a family affair. Dorian Finney-Smith saying it's like going from big brother now once was little brother in Brooklyn in the shadow of the New York Knicks. Now he says he's big brother with the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, little brother maybe being the Los Angeles Clippers. A very interesting story there. Finney-Smith talking about going from the little brother to the big brother story, and apparently happy with his new position with the Los Angeles Lakers. Another last lick for you. We talk about Circa Survivor, and you see it here on SportsGrid week in and week out, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. I host that with my friends Mike Pritchard and James Salinas, and we always cover the latest news in Circa Survivor. And unfortunately, some bad news for our friend Paul Bovey, who is a regular guest here on SportsGrid every Wednesday evening with Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart. You can tune in to him. Might not be there for New Year's Day, might not be a show later this week, but I'm sure we'll talk to Paul about his Circa Survivor fate in the next time he appears here on SportsGrid. But unfortunately, he was a part of 16 entries that were eliminated in choosing the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. You had 34 entries remaining in the Circa Survivor contest. The inherent value of that ticket that you purchased for $1,000 over the summer was nearly now $420,000, with over $14 million in the pot. And nearly half of the remaining entries in the field selected the Indianapolis Colts on the road at New York. Many thought the Giants would be tanking, trying to secure that number one pick in the draft. They did not tank. They came out and won that game pretty handily and knocked out 16 entries in Circa Survivor. And our friend Paul Bovey was one of those unfortunate entries that has been now eliminated. The other selections there, you had 8 people on the Los Angeles Rams. You had some selections on the Los Angeles Chargers. You had some selections on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then also the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. Very few people had entries remaining on the Eagles or the Bills, so understandable that only a couple selections there landed on those teams, but bad news. And finally, some carnage. We've seen so many favorites. The favorites went 13-1 against the spread in Week 17 in the NFL. We had seen very few carnage for a couple of months in Circa Survivor. And then finally, it all came to a head on Sunday, most of all in the way of the Indianapolis Colts and our friend Paul Bovey. And also, this was very interesting, of course, timely with the new year upon us. It is, of course, December 31st, 2024, and we'll be heading into 2025 here in a matter of hours. And of course, we have the ball drop all over the country, famously in New York City and everywhere else around. And I'm sure you'll be watching that somewhere this evening, checking out the balls drop all over the world as we ring in 2025. But it was somebody that came up with a scenario, and we go back to the World Series with the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Maybe no more luminaries in the world of baseball than the Dodgers and the Yankees. And of course, that was the Fall Classic we got this past year. And the Dodgers, with that loaded lineup that they have, they prevailed. And it all kind of turned when, if you recall, and Yankees fans, I hate to bring this up, but when Aaron Judge dropped that ball in center field, I want to say it was the 6th inning. Garrett Cole was kind of cruising along just fine, and then things went south in a hurry in one of the craziest innings you'll ever see. But someone has timed this out, where if you start at a certain point this evening and just run that video, where you start with, the inning beginning for the New York Yankees and the New York Dodgers, and then by the time you strike midnight, it will end with, of course, a ball drop, in this case, the ball drop by Aaron Judge. Quite creative there. A little fun, not so much fun for Yankees reliving that scenario, but certainly very creative there on the part of somebody who came up with that one. What a way to ring in 2025, maybe not the best way for New York Yankee fans. That is going to do it for another edition of NewsWire, the final edition of 2024. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I am, of course, Brady Cannon, filling in for Craig Mish. Craig will be back hopefully as soon as possible. He'll certainly be back in the new year in 2025. Thanks again, everybody. Happy New Year to you, and do it all in 2025 with us at SportsGrid.